Who's Morpheus? In the Christ mythology.
I know, I'm trying to...
He's the Baptist.
John the Baptist?
He's John the Baptist.
Oh.
The honor is mine.
Because John the Baptist knows Jesus is coming.
Yes, he knows who he is.
And sets everything up.
And he's been looking for him.
And he's been looking for him.
And when he meets him, he goes, I'm supposed to be baptized.
You already know what it is. It's your boy Laid Back with another reaction, another review, another episode. Hey, TikTok, you up to bat. Bah. It's your boy Laid Back. Welcome back to my channel. Hey, two things we got to do. You got to hit that subscribe button. I'm drinking this water. You already know what it is, man. You are the prize in 2025. You are the prize in 2025. Make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you hit the notification bell. Stay up to date with all the videos. We back. The merch just dropped. I just got to keep plugging it because it's so fire. If you haven't caught, make sure you caught, man. I'm telling you, back to school and all that's fire. But we back with another conspiracy theory, TikTok. You already know what's going on over here, man. You already know what we doing. You make it to the end of this one, you a real one for real. I got to make sure I say that. Make sure you put that in the comments. Also, make sure you share this with the last person you text in your phone, man. But we back. Let's go ahead and get into it. Fire Squad. What's popping? Let's get it.
The god Thoth, the god of wisdom, who is very proud of himself because he has invented writing. Look at this gift, he says to a mythical pharaoh of that time. Look at the gift that I am giving humanity. Writing, this is a wonderful thing. It'll enable you to preserve so much that you would otherwise lose. And the pharaoh in this story replies to him, no, you have not given us a wonderful gift. You have destroyed the art of memory. We will forget everything.
Damn.
Words will roam free around the world, not accompanied by any wise advice to set them into context. And we do know that cultures that still do have oral traditions are able to preserve information for very long.
Wow. Do your own research.
What is the oldest version of the Bible or the stories in the Bible? Is it the Dead Sea Scrolls or are there older versions?
The Dead Sea Scrolls are the oldest of the Old Testament. So when they were discovered, so they were discovered in 1946 to 1957. And at that point, during their discovery, they pushed back a lot of our previous oldest manuscripts 1,000 years, which was a big deal.
How old are they?
They're anywhere between the 3rd century BC and the 1st century BC. So it's kind of tricky because the Dead Sea Scrolls they're like a library that we refer to. So it's approximately 970 documents, but it's distributed out between 10,000 and 11,000 fragments.
Dang.
So there's a lot going on there, right? So, and some of these, are so fragmentary that you look at them and it's like confetti. Because they're, 3,000 years old, but not quite that. They're like 2,000 plus years old. Right?
Animal skins too, right?
Yeah, well, all sorts of things. Animal skins, papyri, and then some of them are actually done on copper.
Really?
They're like inscribed in copper.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, one of the coolest ones. Actually, this relates because I know you're a Marco Allegro guy. The first time I was introduced to Marco Allegro was not his Sacred Mushroom and the Cross stuff, but he published a book on what's called the Copper Scroll, because part of the Dead Sea Scroll fragments is this inscribed document on copper, which is an ancient treasure map.
Can you see it? Is it online?
Yeah, Jamie, pull up the, hey.
There it is. Wow.
Yeah. So it's in Hebrew, and it is wild. So it has these sites where it says buried treasure is found.
Wow.
And there have been a number of guys who have tried to look for it. And so...
Does it say what the treasure is?
You know what? Off the top of my head, I don't know. But
look how crazy that language is.
I know, right? And so, but the Dead Sea Scrolls, so it's like stuff like this. It's papyri, it's animal skins, and it's a number of different languages. So the vast majority of it is in Hebrew, but there's also a lot in Aramaic, and then Greek, and in Nabatean. So it's like an umbrella term to describe a whole bunch of literature. So a lot of it is biblical because it was written by this group out in the desert called the Essenes who lived at Qumran. So, but then other stuff of it is just, it's just Jewish literature of various stripes that were hidden in caves all around the Dead Sea.
So the scrolls, as it were, aren't all biblical. Some of them is just a counting of the times.
Yeah. Oh, Jamie looked it up. 65 tons of gold and 26 tons of silver.
65
Whoa.
tons.
Whoa.
That's a lot.
That's a lot. How many Cuban links can you make out of that?
You can see why someone
Wow.
would try to track
Yeah.
that down.
Boy.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Wow.
And you know,
Whoa.
when we're talking about the Dead Sea Scrolls, like you have ones like the Great Isaiah Scroll, which is fully complete. Like it's a copy of the book of Isaiah, and it's a full complete scroll. But then other ones are so fragmentary that we think they're written in Hebrew, but we can't actually tell.
Oh, wow.
Because no one's willing to like piece these. And this is true for a lot of stuff. So the largest grouping of papyri literature in the world is the Oxyrhynchus collection, which we get a good portion of our oldest manuscripts of the New Testament from. But if you go to Oxford and you look at the Oxyrhynchus collection, and you pull out that drawer, it's like a jigsaw puzzle, and you're like,
Right.
like most of it is untranslated, untranscribed.
Dang.
Because the amount of man hours that it would just take to even put it together, never mind then go to the effort of transcribing and translating it. And most people are not willing to do that.
And so when you say the book of Isaiah is intact, how similar is it to the book of Isaiah that's in the Bible?
So that one is fascinating. So this isn't true for all of the Dead Sea Scrolls, but when we discovered the Great Isaiah Scroll, previous to that, the earliest copy of Isaiah that we had was in the Masoretic text, which is in the Middle Ages.
Whoa.
Yeah, so it was literally 1,000 years. We literally pushed back our understanding of Isaiah 1,000 years. And the thing that really shocked scholars, like I said, this isn't true for all of the Dead Sea Scrolls, but one of the things that shocked them about Isaiah was that it was word for word identical to the Masoretic text.
Word for word.
Word for word.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So this
Right
is the
there?
Great Isaiah Scroll. So if you go to Israel and
Wait,
you go...
is that papyrus?
Yes. No, I think that one is vellum.
What is vellum?
So I should be more specific. So parchment is animal skin. Vellum can be used synonymously with the term parchment. Technically, parchment is like baby animal skin, like calves or lambs. But this is the Great Isaiah Scroll, and you can see like they stitch together the parchment because it's so long.
God, it's so beautiful. The way they wrote back then was so beautiful.
Wow. 1,000 years, exactly the
People
same.
make the claim that the Egyptians must have had supernatural help to build the pyramids. They're overlooking the huge investment that the ancient Egyptians put into astronomical research. Stonehenge, we now know, is a stone observatory. If you don't have telescopes, how you get accurate measurements of astronomical phenomena? You build these gigantic stone structures which basically operate like gun sights, and you stand back a half mile or a mile away, you can get a very accurate position on the planets and the stars. People
Really?
used to think that Stonehenge was an exception. We now have the archaeological evidence that tells us thousands of these stone observatories are built all over the world. Some of them as much as 50 times bigger than Stonehenge.
Wow.
And so it basically tells us the ancients weren't stupid, and they were scientifically motivated, and they actually spent a greater percentage of their gross national product on astronomical research than we do today by a very wide margin.
And why would they spend more research in the air?
I have a very strange take on this, and I know it's going to sound super stupid to anybody who's like cynical, pragmatist, but just bear with me for a moment. I think the boundaries between this dimension and other ones are permeable. And I have a feeling things can cross through them. And I have a feeling we are like, if an ant is, like I have leafcutter ants in my yard, pretty wild. So cool to watch them. It sucks because they kill all your trees, but so cool to watch this long train of these incredible little beings carrying around these giant pieces of leaf that they cut off. And they're all going into their little house, but you wave your hand over them, they have no fucking idea you're there. Like whatever senses they have, it does not seem to detect threats from things above. They don't seem to be worried.
Right.
You know, they don't perceive us.
Well, they're mission oriented.
Yeah.
And we are too. So if something is happening that's beyond our mission, I think it's hard to perceive it.
I think there's things that exist that are not perceivable.
Oh, I'm 1,000,000% in that camp too.
And I think There's heightened states of consciousness that people achieve under duress, extreme stress, fear. I think that's one of the reasons why a lot of them happen at nighttime. I think nighttime, it automatically fills people with a certain sense of anxiety and fear because you don't know what's out there when you're, especially in the woods at nighttime. And I think in those times when your mind reaches this unusual chemical state, you occasionally can access these other realities. And I think that's where Bigfoot is real. I know it sounds goofy.
No, I mean, that's...
And I don't think you can go find it. That's why Finding Bigfoot is on like season 80 and they haven't found it.
Well, but see, even if it was real, I wouldn't expect them to find it either.
Ooh, even if it was real. Okay.
Mythology Explained. Today we have an all-times favorite, Perseus. And is it myth or did he actually exist? Perseus is one of the most legendary heroes in the ancient Greek heritage. According to the myth, King Acrisius, who's king of Argos, only has a daughter, Danae. And he's annoyed because he's like, I need a male heir. As they always would do in ancient Greece, he goes to the Oracle of Delphi and he's like, hey, what's going on? Like, can you tell me anything about my future? And the Oracle of Delphi is like, well, I actually have bad news for you. From what I see, you are gonna be unalived by your grandson. And he's like,
damn.
what? So he takes matter in his own hands. He takes his daughter and locks her in a tower. Well, if she's locked up in a tower, she's not having kids. No grandson, no problem. But he didn't think about every possibility because we are in ancient Greece. And in ancient Greece, there is Zeus roaming the streets. And this guy, if there is even the slightest chance to get laid, this guy is gonna find it. In this case, he gets super duper creative and he mates with Danae in the form of a shower of gold. Can't even imagine how that would work. Danae is pregnant. She goes to her father. She's like, Dad, I'm sorry. The tower didn't work. King Acrisius is not amused. He's like, sorry, girl, but you have to go. He would never unalive his own daughter, not for affection, but because he's scared that Zeus is going to punish him for that. So he decides to place her and the baby, Perseus, inside a chest and drop it in the sea. I've chosen this image on purpose because I've always found it hilarious. Everybody looks extremely chill. Like, here we can see the king, the queen, and over there we have Danae with little Perseus. And you know, the two of them are like, okay, bye. The queen is probably like, dude, you're sending away my daughter. I'm going with her. And the king is like giving directions, you know, second wave to the right. You can stop and find a very good. Anyway, Danae and Perseus set for sail. And Zeus, even though he's not paying for alimony, he's still taking care of them. He makes sure that she lands safely on an island, the island of Seriphos. Here they're found and saved by the fisherman Dictys. Now, even though he is a fisherman, somehow he is also the brother of the king of the island, Polydectes. They're a very progressive island, no social classes. And everything goes very well for a while. The fisherman Dictys takes care of Perseus as his own, and Danae is super happy. But Danae is also super pretty. And the king, Polydectes, starts to have a crush on her, and he becomes super insistent. And Danae is like, no, I do not, thanks, no. And her son, Perseus, who's almost an adult by now, always tries to help her to keep the king away, basically to stop him from harassing her. But you know, man, when you reject them, they become obsessed with you. And so the king Polydectes is like, no, I need to find a way. I need to send Perseus away. So he organizes a party and he asks all of his friends to bring him a horse. And Perseus is like, I'm a little broke. I cannot bring you a horse. What can I bring you instead? I'm gonna bring you anything. He's the king, so you have to be nice. Polydectes was counting on that answer because he readily answers, I want you to bring me the head of Medusa. Or Medusa is already distressed. For those of you who don't know, Medusa is one of the 3 Gorgons, 3 monstrous sisters. I've made a video about her. It is in this playlist. But anyway, what's important to know is that anybody who looks at her, and Perseus is like, how exactly am I gonna? But the king adds, if you bring me the head of Medusa, I'll stop bothering your mother. And Perseus is like, done, we got a deal. Follow for part 2.
Come on, man. Come on.
We discovered that all the stones of the 3 pyramids at Giza, the stones came from quarries in the site itself.
Even the king's chamber?
No, except the granite in the king's chamber.
And where'd that come from?
From Aswan.
And that's 500 miles away, right?
Yes, by the flood. If you tell me that pyramids built by giants, okay, I will say, okay, come to the excavation. All the skeleton that you discover are 5 to 6 feet high. Nothing about
Who's
giants.
saying they were built by giants?
Some people say that.
Oh, okay. I've heard aliens.
Okay, the second aliens. If aliens built the pyramids, do they leave any? Do they sometimes? Aren't they going to?
Maybe aliens don't.
If they don't, Are they
Everyone?
going to leave something on the ground? On the contrary, I give you the evidence, every evidence that I will tell you today
Of actual workers.
of actual workers and what's happening now.
Bro, how do these shits gotta finish, bro?
Did you know the ancient Greeks and the Chinese not only knew about each other, they actually fought a war against each other? After Alexander the Great defeated Persia, he wanted to conquer his way to the ends of the earth, but his men refused and he was forced to turn back. But before he did, he managed to found Alexandria Escate, one of the many great cities that bore his name. The name means furthest Alexandria, and it was more than 2,000 miles away from ancient Greece. Despite this, the Fergana Valley in which it was situated became one of the most culturally and ethnically Greek areas of Alexander's empire. Partly this was because many of his retired soldiers settled there. But even more importantly, many Greeks were already living in exile in this valley. You see, there were many Greek cities in the Persian Empire, and whenever one of these rebelled, they would be resettled in the Fergana Valley because it was the area of the Persian Empire that was furthest from their homeland. The region thus retained its Greek heritage for the next 200 years. In the 120s BC, an ambassador from the Han Empire traveled to this region, seeking aid in their war against the Xiongnu. The Xiongnu were a formidable tribe of nomadic horse archers, and they're believed to be the ancestors of the Huns that would later devastate the Roman Empire. The Han ambassador was amazed at what he saw in the Fergana Valley. He called the people there the Da Yuan, which translates to the Great Ionians. The Ionians were of course one of the 4 major ethnicities of ancient Greece. He said the Greeks lived in large, sophisticated cities and drank copious amounts of red wine. But most importantly, he reported on their majestic horses. China was always in need of good horses to fend off attacks from their nomadic neighbors. The soil of the region was naturally selenium deficient, which caused the bones of horses raised there to grow weak and brittle. But the horses of the Greeks were more magnificent than any that the ambassador had ever seen. The noble creatures possessed remarkable power, beauty, and endurance. He referred to them as the heavenly horses. When he learned of these remarkable steeds, the Han Emperor sent an envoy laden with gold to purchase them from the Greeks. They even brought a golden horse statue with them as a gift. But when they reached the valley after many months of arduous travel, the Greeks refused to sell them a single one of their horses. Instead, the Greeks ambushed and destroyed the envoy, taking with them all the gold. When the Han Emperor learned of this, he was furious. He sent an army of 20,000 men to take the horses by force. But as they made their way through the harsh desert between the two countries, the oasis cities there shut their gates to the passing army. The oasis dwellers feared that if the Chinese were able to conquer the Greeks, they would soon come back for them. Many fell from hunger or exposure, and the rest were forced to retreat. But the emperor was not deterred. He sent back a force 3 times as large. The oasis cities of the desert were not able to resist this larger force, and the troops made their way to the Fergana Valley. They laid siege to Alexandria Escate for 40 days before capturing the city, and taking with them 3,000 of the heavenly horses. These creatures became legendary in China and were depicted in art for hundreds of years after. Not only that, but the conquest of the Fergana Valley led to the creation for the first time of what came to be known as the Silk Road. Follow for more.
But he said 20, then he said 60,000.
Ancient Egypt had a totally different focus. Yeah, they were great at making material things, but that was secondary. Their main thing was, what are we here for? Why are we living this life? What happens to us when we die? They investigated that mystery more deeply than any other culture that I know of, and they were doing so right from the beginning of records.
And they were documenting this journey to the afterlife.
Absolutely.
In hieroglyphs. And it's like, what were you documenting? Like, how do you know? Like, what were you trying? How did everyone agree on this particular myth or this story?
They involve the journey of the soul after death and a leap to the heavens. And sometimes it's called an underworld, but really it's set in the sky. And this journey that takes place where you are judged on what you've done with your life. This is something else that we avoid in the world today, is taking responsibility for our own lives. The ancient Egyptians required you to take responsibility for your life. And if you did not do so, the outcome after death would not be good. You had to celebrate the gift of life. You had to realize the incredible gift that you had been given. And one of the opportunities of that gift is the opportunity to accumulate wisdom. And that's one of the things, hopefully, that we all do as we get older, is get a bit more wisdom and a bit more understanding. But in the case of ancient Egypt, that idea is developed over 3,000 years, and it's essentially the same at the beginning as it is at the end. That the soul, that death is not the end. This is the conclusion of a society that put its best minds at work for 3,000 years on this problem. The death is not the end. The light goes out, it goes out forever. That's actually not a scientific fact. That's not something that's been investigated or can be investigated.
Consciousness itself is so confusing. Just consciousness. Just like, what is it and why are we conscious? What is it local, or are we tuning into consciousness? And when you die, where's that go? Where's that energy go? Is a soul a real thing? Like, what is the essence of life? What is the essence of human life and human consciousness? Those are perplexing questions.
You have been given the precious gift of life. What did you do with it? And there are moral aspects to that question. There's these 42 assessors, they're called the negative assessors, who ask the soul of the deceased questions about what they did in life. And those are all moral questions. They bear some relationship actually to the Ten Commandments. But there's another question which is called the weighing of words, and that question is, what did you do with the gift we gave you? We gave you the gift of a human life. We gave you the gift of the opportunity to love or to hate at your choice.
Right.
We gave you the gift to live in a human body, to have this incredible consciousness, to be able to integrate all kinds of information from all kinds of spheres. What did you do with it? Did you leave the world a better place or a worse place than when you came into it? Did you hurt and damage and cause pain to others consistently out of wicked intent, not accidentally but deliberately causing pain? And there are human beings who do that.
Right.
For the ancient Egyptians, that kind of behavior meant an introduction to Amit, the eater of the dead. And Amit is displayed in the judgment scene. He's a creature, part hyena, part lion, and he sits there, and certain souls do not go on. Their journey ends, and it ends because of the choices they made during life, and because they never took responsibility for what they did.
Well, it kind of makes sense. A natural selection of the souls.
Interesting.
A lot of people ask me, you know, Hancock, you've been arguing that there's been a lost civilization in the human story, but what sort of civilization do you think it was? Well, one of the things I think is it was a civilization that used psychedelics. I think it was a civilization that emerged from shamanism, but did not stay at the hunter-gatherer stage, but that took the essence of shamanism and integrated it into a very different kind of civilization from our own, which pursued things in different ways. A lot of archaeologists have said to me, but we don't find any plastic bottles from the Ice Age. That means there was no advanced civilization during the Ice Age. Well, hang on. Maybe an advanced civilization might have decided never to get involved in plastic in the first place. Maybe there would have been a clear choice not to make plastic. Maybe they did things in completely different ways. Maybe they cultivated powers of the human mind that we dismiss and regard as completely unimportant. You know, woo-woo.
Yeah, this is the thoughts about Egypt, correct?
It's about Egypt and about other things. I mean, the specific example I give is above the King's Chamber in the Great Pyramid are 5 further chambers. And these chambers are roofed and floored with granite beams that weigh about 70 tons each. Yeah. And there are hundreds of them. Dang. And these 70-ton granite beams, which to put in context, a 70-ton beam is equivalent in weight to 35 large SUVs. Ooh. These 70-ton granite beams have been elevated to a height of more than 350 feet above the ground and carefully and precisely placed in position. It is very hard for archaeologists to explain how that was done using purely leverage and mechanical advantage. You can say, oh, perhaps they built a ramp and hauled the stones up the ramp. But then you have to confront basic laws of physics. You can't haul a stone weighing tens of tons up a slope that exceeds 10 degrees.
Crazy.
Are you confused why men are always thinking about the Roman Empire? Let me fill you in. The Roman Empire was 5 million square kilometers, making it larger than the United States, and it started in little tiny Italy. You know that big Colosseum? They had people fight in it? Who cares? They literally flooded it and had ship battles. The Colosseum was literally large enough to fit multiple ships, hundreds of people, and still have room to battle. They built bridges nearly 2,000 years ago that are not only still standing, but still in use. The Alcantara Bridge in Spain was built under Emperor Trajan in 106 AD, and the original inscription on the bridge read, "I have built a bridge which will last forever." The land they controlled included modern-day Albania, Austria, Algeria, Belgium, Bosnia, Bulgaria, Croatia, Egypt, England, Greece, Hungary, Iraq, Israel, Italy, Jordan, Lebanon, Libya, Morocco, Portugal, Romania, Slovenia, Spain, Switzerland, Syria, Turkey, and Ukraine. They invented concrete, we still use concrete today. In case you were doubting how cool and rich they were, they literally invented the word palace. Make sure to follow for more.
Crazy. That's wild.
What happened to all the Anunnaki and Thoth and all them?
They had 2 wars. The first pyramid war almost eradicated them, but they started over again. The second pyramid war, bad. That one almost decimated the planet. You see how when you look at Earth, like from Google Earth, you see a lot of those big deserts going across. People say, oh, that's just natural geological formations over time. This has become an arid desert. No, that's war. If you go to Egypt and stick your hand deep in the sands, eventually you're gonna come up with balls of glass. How can you get glass and sand?
What?
3,000 plus degree temperatures. You go to Mohenjo-Daro in the Indus Valley, what are you gonna see there? Dead bodies still in the streets from thousands of years ago, still holding hands, never been scavenged.
What?
The buildings that they lived in turned to glass. How can that be? We're talking about 3,000 plus degree temperature weapons fire.
Whoa.
We're talking about this war that happened in the ancient past. Amun-Ra wanted to continue he started the first war to take over the earth early because he didn't want to wait for his processional period to rule. And then this is the guy who says, you must say amen after everything. Say amen. Everything you give thanks for, you're saying amen to him. So when you say amen, you're thanking him, by the way. A brutal killing guy. But anyway, so he says, it's a fact. He started one war to take over early, which he won.
Yeah.
He then started a second war to stay in power. And in that second war, he escaped. He was almost killed. But he left his kingship and the finances of the kingdom to the Ra-Kam. And R-A-K-A-M. But that translates into modern words. Kam translates into childs. So now you translate Ra, childs, Ra, childs.
Whoa. Whoa. Whoa.
The Sphinx, which is obviously one of the most amazing structures of the ancient world. The Egyptians don't talk about it. They don't know when it was built or why. And it's just odd. Imagine talking about New York and never mentioning the Statue of Liberty in your literature. Like, it doesn't make sense.
Here's why it's interesting that you brought up the Sphinx. Because the temple of the Sphinx is the best evidence that it's older than people think it is. You see the walls on the outside?
Yeah.
Those lines are a clear sign of water erosion. You don't get that kind of erosion from sand and wind. Those type of fissures are only created from water, from thousands of years of rainfall. The last time there was rain in the Nile Valley was like 9,000 years ago. So it had to be thousands of years older than that. When they first found these fissures, they were like, there's no way, there's no evidence of any culture that existed that was sophisticated that long ago. Where's the culture? Where's the evidence? Well, now they have evidence.
Wow, 9,000 years?
If you still think we're the first advanced civilization to exist on Earth, then this will change your mind and blow it at the same time. Okay, so this is a map of pyramids all around the world, all allegedly built independently of each other and all having identical structures that follow this similar step pattern. Now I know, most historians will tell you, oh, it's just the easiest tall structure to build. It's human nature. If it's so easy, why are our 21st century brains not capable of doing what dozens of ancient civilizations have repeatedly been able to do? We got the famous pyramids of Djoser in Egypt, but everyone knows about those. Across the world, there's Chichen Itza, Pyramid de los Nichas, Tikal Temple, the Great Pyramid of Cholula, among others in Mexico. And then on the other side of the planet, we got Kokur and Prasat Baksay Chem Krong in Cambodia. Off the coast of a tiny Japanese island deep within the ocean is the sunken Yonaguni monument, a supposed 10,000 years old, older than even the Egyptian pyramids. All with a nearly identical look, yet built by completely different cultures with zero contact among each other and thousands of kilometers apart. But this is just the tip. We got way more lesser known pyramids, even older than the Egyptian ones, that ain't even standing anymore. Like the Gunung Padang Temple in Indonesia. Doesn't look so hot now, but used to be a step pyramid a whole 9,000 years ago. At least that's what they thought, until a more recent radiocarbon analysis shows that the lower parts of this temple go as far back as 28,000 years. Then this enormous hill in Bosnia was studied, and almost every archaeologist that visited it confirmed that it could not have been naturally formed, perfectly aligning to true north among many other characteristics of pyramids. These studies found out this hidden monument is over 35,000 years old and would be the oldest and largest pyramid in the world, hidden under years of vegetation. But the Bosnian government strangely halted further study on this thing for some reason. There's a crazy story behind what they found there, which honestly deserves its own video, so I'll probably be dropping that sometime. Fallen Pyramid of Hellinikon in Greece has boulders that are joined so tightly that even a human hair can't fit through the joints without any sort of ancient cement used. Built around 3000 BC, meanwhile, an almost identical masonry techniques was found in these walls in the city of Cusco in Peru, called Sacsayhuaman, over 11,000 30,000 kilometers away. And how old are these walls? Mainstream history will tell you they were built around the 15th century, but researchers recently uncovered a writing system built directly within the blocks of these walls that's well over 30,000 years old. Again, a topic that deserves its own video coming soon. This exact method is also found on a site called Ahu'vinapu on the remote Easter Island, older than even their legendary Moai heads, as well as Khafre's Valley Temple in Egypt. How did our ancient ancestors figure out these identical building techniques completely independent of each other when we still have no idea how they did it to this day? Now we get to the Ellsworth Mountains in Antarctica. Okay, get your tinfoil hats ready for this one, because this satellite footage from 2016 shows what could be a pyramid buried in the South Pole. This map from 1513 by sailor Piri Reis shows a perfectly accurate coastline of Antarctica, even though it wasn't officially discovered 300 years later in 1820. What's weird is this map connects South America to Antarctica, which it could very well be that over 10,000 years ago these two continents were connected by a sheet of ice. Researchers claim this map was sourced from an even more ancient document that survived from the Library of Alexandria in Egypt, which was destroyed by the Romans. What if the builders of Giza left this map as directions as to where else they put pyramids around the world? And the pyramids are just the start. Take a look at these ancient artifacts from Bolivia, Turkey, Indonesia, and Easter Island. Four completely separate corners of the world, all with identical carvings and artistic styles used, and again, thousands of kilometers apart and absolutely no contact among each other. Just another coincidence, right? Now get a load of this one here. I know it sounds crazy, but you'd be surprised. Ancient lasers, or at least some form of precision cutting technology that is on par with our modern drilling methods. From these perfectly cut stone patterns in Pumpumpunku, Bolivia, to the unfinished obelisk at Aswan and the boxes at the Serapeum of Saqqara in Egypt, made of granite, one of the hardest materials ever, with insane accuracy only achievable with today's technology. The Al Nasla rock in Saudi Arabia literally looks like a giant laser beam just cut right through it. Meanwhile, the Kailash temple in India, which was somehow cut into a cliffside with perfectly symmetrical hallways carved with copy-paste level precision. Not to mention the perfect doorways carved into Borobudur caves thousands of years earlier. And these star holes found in Flint Quarry, Massachusetts, and even all the way in Norway, all indicating some sort of highly advanced drilling or precision laser technology used. The incredible list of similarities among these ancient cultures tells us that they all clearly had some sort of external influence that guided them, which they actually recorded proof of directly into their stone tablets, wall carvings, and hieroglyphics. Alright, that might be enough for now. I think I'll save that for another video, so keep an eye out for that one if I don't disappear before then.
Yo, coincidence or not?
There's a lot about the Great Pyramid which suggests that it was intended to transmit information to the future. And that's one of the reasons why it incorporates the dimensions of the Earth on a particular scale, that you can take the height of the Great Pyramid and multiply by 43,200 and you get the polar radius of the Earth. You can measure the base perimeter of the Great Pyramid, multiply it by the same number, you get the equatorial circumference of the Earth. That number is not a random number.
Those key numbers measure time today. 24 hours times 60 means there's 86,400 seconds. On vernal equinox, period of time of darkness and of light are exactly equal, 43,200 seconds. That number is the scaling ratio of the pyramid.
So the Great Pyramid is gradually, bit by bit, revealing its secrets, and it's almost as though it was waiting for a time when human beings were ready to receive those secrets and had the ability to decode them.
This stuff is fascinating. Fascinating.
Some of it comes out of the Nag Hammadi scripts. They believed in this reptilian type of a race that was in this phase-shifted reality that can actually dominate mankind from this behind the veil type mechanism. They also have another one that kind of looks like an embryonic person, but it's embryonic, looks like a gray alien. Kind of weird stuff in these Nag Hammadi scripts. And it talks about these kind of beings. There's also been crypts in places underground, even in the Americas, where they found remnants of what seemed to be this ancient reptilian race. And of course, you know, in Sumeria, they found the Ubaid culture with thousands of statuettes of these reptilian people. So there could be some truth to that. There could be some actual truth to that. In terms of who's running the world right now, I believe there's still people who are in direct bloodline with the Sumerian kings list.
Reptilian people, bro. Come on.
A huge controversy in science at the moment. We know that there was enormous flooding 12,800 years ago, but the question is what caused it? Why did it happen then? Called the Younger Dryas impact hypothesis. The Earth passed through the debris stream of a disintegrating comet, and those several bits of that disintegrating comet be up to 1 kilometer in diameter, and they landed on the North American ice cap, generating huge amounts of heat. Tremendous shock wave hits the ice cap, and it turns that ice into water, and it rushes down southwards, fills up these lakes, overflows these lakes, and tears up the landscape. Almost unimaginable that this cataclysm did happen 12,800 years ago, and which should change the way that we look at the history of the human species.
Come on, you got to give me more than that.
Even the Aboriginal elders that I've talked to still have handed down verbal history of Lemuria, and it being an island that now has since sunk off the coast of Australia. They were seeded on this planet in Lemuria by Pleiadians. The Pleiadians brought them to this planet and seeded them in Lemuria and helped build a golden age there in Lemuria, a spiritual golden age, not tech, consciously spiritual, where people had the capability of telekinesis, psychic abilities, speaking to each other without opening their mouths and so forth and everything, navigation through, the geomagnetic fields, using the magnetite crystals in their brain and everything else. And at some point, there's a corruption that happened and that island did sink, but the Aboriginals sustained on Australia, which are still there till this very day. And there's still even remnants of these Pleiadian hieroglyphs, which I've seen with my own eyes in Australia when I went there a few years ago, out in the outback. When I went for a walkabout in the outback with some Aboriginals, we went out and we saw these glyphs. And to date, nobody in the world has been able to decipher these hieroglyphs.
Man, there's some crazy stuff out there.
Cleopatra lived closer to the invention of the iPhone than she did to the construction of the pyramids. Yeah. Even if you use the conventional 2500 BC dating of the construction of the pyramids, which is also under debate.
It's under debate, yeah.
Well, it's also, even if that's true, even if it is 2,500 years ago, the most baffling thing is how did they do it? There's no simple answers. I don't give a fuck what anybody says. There's no simple answers. How did they do it? How did they have such incredible sophistication in their construction methods? How did they get those massive 80-plus ton stones 500 miles down from the mountains with no equipment, no heavy machinery? No. Whatever they did, I think it's reasonable to say that in a different way, I don't think they had iPhones, I don't think they had email, but they were probably more sophisticated than us today in their ability to manipulate stone and make constructions.
Completely agree with that.
When the Romans conquered Egypt, they wanted to crush the Egyptian population. So they did things like they banned Egyptians from owning land. They banned Egyptians from riding horses. They banned Egyptians from doing anything but wearing the color blue. And the Romans did this because they knew that the Egyptian population was going to be complicated to rule over. The Egyptians kept rebelling, so the Romans kept massacring them by mass crucifixions. And they would just crucify whole segments of the Egyptian population and then say, look, this is going to happen to you if you keep rebelling. And of course, the Egyptians just kept rebelling. Then by the time it got to 31 BC, Egypt's civilization was 4,000 years old. When Alexander the Great conquered Egypt and went to the pyramids for the first time and gazed upon the pyramids, the Giza pyramids were 2,300 years old for him. So when he was looking at the pyramids, he was going, I can't believe this is 23 centuries old, just to give you a little sense of this. We are as far from Alexander the Great as the pyramids were from him.
Damn.
These things had to have been made on a machine and made with extreme precision, because this vase that is igneous stone, a very, very hard stone, very hard to work, but also brittle when it becomes thin. You can see how thin that interior wall is. There's 50,000 plus of them were discovered beneath the Step Pyramid of Djoser. Recently, there's been some work done. They're professional metrologists. They've got their hands on a pre-dynastic Egyptian vase. And for the first time, they've actually been able to scan this thing using a structured light scanner. So what they've done is they've created a point cloud of the top of this lip, so the flatness, and it's within 0.003 of an inch of being basically perfectly flat. Now we're looking at the lip on its axis. It's perfectly perpendicular to within 1/1000th of an inch, and then this shows you what's the circularity of it. It's within 13,000ths of an inch of being perfectly circular. So this is carved out of stone. They say that the Egyptians, used very primitive tools to make these, pounding stones, chisels. This puts the whole concept of, can these even remotely been made by hand to bed?
Man, they can't explain that shit.
Pretty much everybody knew the Earth was a sphere before that. It's just nobody could prove it until the ancient Egyptians sent a fleet of ships around Africa, and they completely circumnavigated Africa. And what they noticed 2,600 years ago is as they were traveling south, the sun's position moved from being in the southern sky directly overhead to the northern sky, and the constellations changed to constellations they'd never seen before. And then as they came around the southern tip of Africa and started heading north, the sun slowly moved from the northern sky or directly overhead back to the southern sky, and their old constellations returned, and they went, there's literally only one shape that could accommodate that experience. The Earth is clearly a sphere. Done.
This is one of the mysteries of Gobekli Tepe, the biggest megalithic structure on Earth, because so much of it is still underground, although we know what's there because of ground-penetrating radar. And they say that civilization began about 6,000 years ago. They say that the first big megalithic structures were created by societies that were already agricultural societies. But then suddenly, out of the blue, comes Gobekli Tepe in Turkey, which is 11,600 years old. They were hunter-gatherers, highly sophisticated, 20-ton pillars, beautiful astronomical alignments, and then they deliberately buried it. And archaeology is still struggling to explain this. How, in God's name, do a group of hunter-gatherers wake up one morning and create something like this? And then the mystery deepens, because at the same time that they're building the megalithic site, they're also suddenly doing agriculture.
Brad, what shit going on? They don't know. They don't know.
The people in Egypt, they believed in what's called Kemet, the people that existed before the Egyptians. When we hear these stories about the Great Pyramid being a tomb for the pharaoh, it's worth mentioning that even the locals didn't believe that. The saying that the pyramids were built to be tombs for the pharaohs wasn't even developed until 150 years ago. That's it. They were taught Kemet. And it's worth mentioning that when you go through inside these pyramids of Giza, there's not one single glyph in any of them whatsoever. There was never a mummy found in any Egyptian pyramid ever. Quite literally, the only reason why we are told this stuff is because that was the theory developed by these men that went in there and said, I believe these must have been for the pharaohs. That makes sense.
So it's all just one group of people had one theory, and that theory just stuck around.
100%.
That's wild to hear that.
Archaeologists roll their eyes every time you say the word Atlantis, but that is precisely the date that Plato, which is the earliest surviving reference to Atlantis, that's precisely the date he gives for the destruction of Atlantis, 11,600 years before our time. He puts it this way, that his ancestor Solon visited Egypt, and we know about that visit. It's historically recorded. That visit to Egypt was in 600 BC, and there Solon claimed to have been told by Egyptian priests about this great advanced civilization that once existed, but that angered the gods and was destroyed in an enormous flood. And Solon asked those Egyptian priests, when did this happen? And they said, 9,000 years ago. Well, do the math. That's in 600 BC. That's 9,000 years before 600 BC. We call that 9,600 BC. That's 11,600 years ago. That's exactly the date of the end of the Younger Dryas, and it's exactly the date of what is called Meltwater Pulse 1b, one of the biggest single rises overnight in sea level that ever occurred.
Wow. Wow. Is that true?
Listen, I don't know what's wrong with me. I was at a table with cousin, my friend. He was a fighter too, and he said something about Alexander the Great. And why did I he said he was like 6'5" during like 300 years before Christ. He was like 6'5", but he wasn't. He was really little. He was really small. He was so small that the equipment couldn't fit him. He was too small.
Wow.
You know? But his illusion of himself was big.
Yeah. There's Alexander the Great, too.
Yeah.
There's also something that I heard about him, too. That his mother told him from the beginning.
He was God.
That you are destined. You are a part of the gods.
His mother's one of the first stage mothers in history. But they've been thousands of years, millions of years before her. They've been stage mothers that inspired their son. Alexander, when you talk about Alexander the Great, you talk about him and Napoleon. And notice the resemblance between the two, because today we call them bitch ass niggas, you know, because they're wimps. Not because they might be gay, but just because they're wimps and stuff. And that's what they were afraid of their mothers. Can you imagine that those powerful men are afraid of their mothers?
Mike Tyson be going deep, pause.
Modern builders will tell you that if they were commissioned to produce a monument on the scale of the Great Pyramid, they probably could do it, giving enough time and enough technology and enough of a workforce. But then to be required to align it perfectly to true north, that would complicate their task enormously. And building a pyramid isn't just a matter of heaping stones on top of each other. You put down your first course. If you get the second course slightly wrong and the third course just a little bit more wrong, by the time you get to the top, you don't have a pyramid, you have a corkscrew. So this all has to be taken great care of. The notion that 2.5 million blocks could be brought to that place in 23 or 28 years and erected into a pyramid that actually works is itself absurd.
Absolutely craziness.
Look, we know all human beings came from Africa. That's the birthplace of humanity itself. And then the most complex structures that have ever been created also are in Africa. So if you would imagine that those people had been given enough time, whether it's 20,000, 30,000 years, to evolve these technologies, and then boom, hit by giant rocks from the sky and millions of people are killed. The people that are left live a barbaric existence for thousands of years and then relearn civilization and starts from scratch. That's what Graham Hancock is talking about.
Yeah.
That's what Randall Carlson is talking about. That's what John Anthony West was talking about while he was alive, who has an amazing series called Magical Egypt. It's a multi-part DVD series that details like the incredible complexities of the structures and how they related to the cosmos and magic stuff. Just
extreme magic stuff. Extreme.
There's so many of those statues in this one area. Like, why did they do that?
Te Pitu or Tehenua, the navel of the earth. And it's not the only place. Delphi in Greece calls itself the navel of the earth. Heliopolis in Egypt, close to Giza, was a navel of the earth. Angkor in Cambodia is a navel of the earth. Gobekli Tepe means the hill of the navel. This notion of navels of the earth gets connected to an ancient geodetic survey, that there were certain anchor points that lines of longitude were drawn from by a civilization that didn't have our tech, didn't have our iPhones, but did explore the world, did sail the oceans, and it had abilities that we do not attribute to period of that time.
That is a fact. That is a fact.
Mesopotamia is called the cradle of civilization. Long before the pyramids soared above Egypt, and ages before Stonehenge was built, the ancient civilization of Sumer thrived. Sumer was founded about 7,000 years ago. The Sumerians invented writing. They discovered the wheel. They revolutionized agriculture by inventing the first plow. Though the Greeks get credit for inventing city-states, that too was a Sumerian concept. Sumer was organized into city-states, each governed independently with its own ruler. Sumerians understood complicated mathematics and astronomy. Their number systems used to tell time and measure the angles of a circle are still used today.
We hear about all these ancient civilizations, but when did each one happen? How do they fit together in the broader story of human history? Well, here's the whole story in a 2-minute video. First up is the Stone Age, which lasted for 2.5 million years. Modern humans hadn't taken over the planet yet, but they were leaving Africa, met some Neanderthals along the way, but then ran into the Ice Age, which kind of sucked. Nice thing about everything being frozen though is that this created a little land bridge that let people cross into the Americas. This whole time period is called prehistory because writing hadn't been invented yet, so it's hard to know exactly what happened. But that would all change right around 3000 BC or BCE. Civilization became a thing. Why was this a big deal? Well, for the first time ever, we got so efficient at growing food that we didn't need everyone to be a farmer. Some people can make advanced tools instead, which helped you grow more food, which let people do more non-farmer stuff. This spiral of wealth was insane and led to things like cities, math, the wheel, irrigation, writing, and government. People were so advanced that instead of picking up rocks and calling them tools, they invented metal, bronze to be exact, so people call this the Bronze Age. This was mostly happening in Mesopotamia, Egypt, China, the Indus Valley, and Greece. Egypt somehow built the pyramids this early in human history, which is why we have so many conspiracy theories about them. Tragically, around 1200 BCE, many of these Mediterranean Bronze Age civilizations kind of just got wiped off the map. We still don't really know how it happened, but history basically went silent in this region for 400 years. During this time though, people started using iron and not bronze, so we call it the Iron Age. Contrary to what RuneScape has taught us, iron actually wasn't stronger than bronze at first, but it was way more convenient to make. This was a big deal because you could make way more of it, and instead of arming just a few people, you could arm everyone. And you could start putting it on a bunch more tools like plows and chisels and make every tool in society metallized. Right around 600 BCE, ancient Greece and ancient Rome really began to flourish. So when you hear historians mention things like antiquity or the classical period, they're referring to this period. Though this is obviously a very Western-centric view because binding these specific years together to create a historical time period is sort of arbitrary for non-Western civilizations. Most of the ancient Greek philosophers you hear about, like Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle, all lived in this time, as well as Greek rulers like Alexander the Great. The Bible and Hindu and Buddhist scriptures were all written during this time. Most of the things that you associate with ancient China, like Confucianism, papermaking, and the Silk Road, happened here, especially during the Han Dynasty, and most Chinese people even today are called Han Chinese. The Persian Empire, Roman Empire, Carthage, Kingdom of Kush, and Mauryan Empire all happened here. And the Golden Age for both India and the Mayans happened around the end of this time period. This time period of classical antiquity would end when the Western Roman Empire collapsed and Europe would enter its Dark Ages. This happened in 476 AD or 476 CE. And by the way, when you hear these two years, they mean the same thing. Historians started using CE because it's more neutral and doesn't center around Jesus Christ. So basically, prehistory was a Stone Age before writing was a thing. All of ancient history includes the Bronze Age, Iron Age, and classical antiquity. After ancient history was the Middle Ages, from this point up until the 1500s when the Americas were discovered and the Renaissance started, and everything after the 1500s is called modern history. The Middle Ages and modern history will have to be for another video, but hopefully this quick video gave you a good overview on ancient history.
Yeah, I ain't know nothing about the bronze and all that type of stuff.
Many people have disputed some of his, like, he has one claim that the word Christ can be traced etymologically, how do you say it? Etymologically,
yeah.
To an ancient Sumerian word that means a mushroom covered in God's semen.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was his assertion that the idea was that
That's
they
the
thought
anointing.
when it rained, that rain was the giver of life, and it was literally God's semen that made things grow, and that these mushrooms, because they would show up so quickly.
Wow.
You know, if it rains, if you go to bed, you could look out at just your lawn, and it's complete grass, not a mushroom in sight. And you can go to bed, and then wake up in the morning, there'll be big mushrooms there. It's really weird. And that these things, when they would eat these psilocybin mushrooms that would appear out of nowhere, they genuinely were referring to them as God, that this was like a gift from God, and that was tracing back to the origin of the word Christ. But it's very tortured, like, to really understand and to be able to dispute it, you'd have to have a deep understanding of Aramaic. You'd have to have a deep understanding of Aramaic. You'd have to have a deep understanding of the original doctrines, like what is the actual translation? What does it mean? You'd have to understand the ancient Hebrew version of it. How does it differ?
All the webs of associations.
Oh God, it's so crazy. When we read it in English, I mean, what was the original version? The original version, all the ancient letters in ancient Hebrew also doubled as numbers, right? So words had numerical value. Like the word God and the word love apparently have the same numerical value. That is a bizarre concept for us to try to wrap our heads around. A language which you know that words also have numbers in them, that your letters also mean numbers, and that there's value, certain numerical value to certain words.
Right.
And that you would use them in the context of these conversations. You would understand where I don't understand. I don't have that. I have English. It's like we have math, we have language. They're separate.
Right.
And you're missing something in what they're trying to say.
He be going in, Joe be going in sometimes.
Sphinx at some point in its history was exposed to more than 1,000 years of extremely heavy rainfall. Looking at the erosion patterns, you can see these deep vertical fissures and a kind of scalloped rounded profile, and that is classic rainfall-induced weathering. And the bottom line is, such rains do not fall in the Giza Plateau today. They did not fall in the Giza Plateau 5,000 years ago, but they did fall on the Giza Plateau if you go back 12,000 years. That was the time when the Sahara Desert was green.
Crazy, this stuff is crazy.
We know that Atlantis didn't leave behind any stones with writings in them. It means that they had become advanced enough they were probably doing what we're doing, with at least paper, scrolls and paper and other means. And that just tells us that they were already at a different level. And that doesn't mean it was a good level, because I think that they became too cocky and arrogant. It's described, it's interesting because we do have a lot of details of what happened to Atlantis. It's described that Atlantis started as a pure place of incredible knowledge. And then what happened was it became an empire and became warlike. And it describes how it even had slavery going on in North Africa. These are like detailed details, right? And how there was a rival civilization that existed at the same time as them. That was the only one that could stand up to them militarily. The ancient Athenians, the pre-Greeks, right? Which is why the Greeks and that whole area seem to have this like perfected democracy that seems to have come from nowhere. It describes in that and how they were the birthplace of democracy. The original Athenians, and they weren't using slavery or empire building. And that's why Plato used them as the two examples in the Timaeus and Critias, as well as his other books, because they became the perfect two examples of how one civilization can be corrupted and turn into an empire, and how the other one can still maintain strength, but can maintain their core values. And it describes how Atlantis went to war with the Athenians, and that ultimately Atlanteans were destroyed during the earth catastrophes at the end of the Younger Dryas. Plato gives us an exact date.
Dang.
So these tablets, what are they called again?
You're talking about the Sumerian Kings list.
Can you show me that, Jamie? I want to see what that looks like.
It's a giant four-sided tablet located in the Ashmolean Museum in Oxford, England.
This is it right here?
That's it right there. Those are all four sides.
And how old is this?
This is, they're saying 6,000, but...
Can you make it bigger, Jamie?
Believe me, it's much older than that. This is a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy over tens of thousands of years, in my opinion. But this text gives the reigns of kings in shars. S-H-A-R. A shar is 3,600 years. So one shar would be 3,600. See, 241,000 years of rule.
Whoa.
On that stone right there.
Wow. The Sumerian Kings list.
Yeah.
Now, if this is right, if this is all true, what a mind-blowing idea that humans have been around, that were engineered hundreds of thousands of years ago, and that this is the reason why there's this bizarre shift between lower primates and us.
Bizarre. Very.
Did you see that one I posted on Instagram the other day?
No.
Oh my God. This is fucking insane. Check this out.
Central Java's lush Kedu plains in pursuit of this mythical peak near the little settlement of Bura. They chopped and burned the strangling vegetation for 6 weeks and removed tons of volcanic ash. What they discovered were marvelous figures cut in stone, thousands of them, hidden beneath the volcanic jungle.
Buddha.
Believed to have been built in the 8th and 9th century, the Borobudur Temple is an uncontested marvel whose intricate architecture continues to confound scholars. Despite being one of the most important sites on Java, there is no written record of who erected it or what its intended purpose was. Because there are no inscriptions or dates on the monument, historians must make educated guesses as to when it was most likely created. The dating estimates are based purely off of architectural comparisons found elsewhere in Indonesia. Given the magnitude of the construction, it appears remarkable that no ruler or dynasty took credit for it. Borobudur is the world's biggest Buddhist temple, and yet nobody knows who built it.
Whoa.
On the Indonesian...
That's cool.
Yeah, Jamie, I'm sending you another one right now. I mean...
That's cool.
There's a bunch of these things. There's a bunch of things like that. They're just like, I don't know.
Yeah, they don't know. They don't.
One great spokesman of the world who was a tremendous believer in reincarnation was a man named Plato. Very distinguished. Historical Plato. Listen to what he said. Knowledge easily acquired is that which the enduring self had in an earlier life. So it flows back easily. Quote, unquote, Plato. A good guy to quote, would you say, Albert? I mean, he has some credentials, I would think. He's not the village idiot by any way, shape, or form. Good quote. So he is saying that these things that come very easily to you is knowledge that you have had in a previous lifetime, so that as you start to mature in this lifetime and your brain develops to the point where you can then reassert it, here it comes flooding into you. This is extremely easy for me to do. So somewhere, obviously, in a previous existence, I was dealing with this. Because it just takes me no time to be able to do it. Okay? That is no big deal, but just simply try to back up what he's talking about. And I'm sure there are things in your lifetime or things that you do. And if not, then you should meditate into those things and try to discern just what it is. Because there is something that comes from a previous lifetime that would be very easy for you and will make clear to you that what you were doing before.
If you believe that, right? If you believe that.
Who's Morpheus?
In the Christ mythology.
I know, I'm trying to...
He's the Baptist.
John the Baptist?
He's John the Baptist.
Oh.
The honor is mine.
Because John the Baptist knows Jesus is coming.
Yes, he knows who he is.
And sets everything up.
And he's been looking for him.
And he's been looking for him.
And when he meets him, he goes, I'm supposed to be baptized. So that's who Morpheus is in the Christ mythology.
In the Christ.
But there's also mythology, Greek mythology.
Tell me.
There's, well, Morpheus is the Lord of Dream. He's the god of dream.
All right.
From Greek mythology, right? Persephone, who's in the second or third movie, who's played by Monica Bellucci. The Oracle is Greek.
Yes, that's actual Oracle.
The Oracle is Greek.
Yeah.
Right?
Too bad we lost her before the second film.
Yeah.
She was really a strong character.
Niobe.
There's an element on the periodic table called niobium.
Is there?
Yes, there is. Because there's something about the colors that were sort of iridescent and radiant.
Okay.
And it's something about in the Greek legend.
Right.
Niobe, I don't know the full story, but it borrowed that from Greek legend.
Right.
Niobium.
So there's the Osiris, there's the Nebuchadnezzar, which is also biblical.
Yes, of course. It's also the size of a very large bottle of wine. Nebuchadnezzar. You tend to find it only in Champagne because that's when it's
kingly.
a party.
It's kingly.
Yeah, it's kingly. It's a party for 30 people.
30 people.
And you just lean the bottle for Nebuchadnezzar.
Nebuchadnezzar.
Is the size of a bottle of wine.
So there's the Gnosis, there's the Osiris.
Okay, so
Persephone.
I don't want to say mashup because that might undersell it. It's drawing from,
but it's drawing from all these traditions. It draws from Western tradition, spiritually, religiously, and Eastern tradition, spiritually, and philosophically as well.
Especially.
Yeah.
Because scenes are not just simple scenes. You have to think about them.
No.
What's going on here and why?
Right.
They was breaking that down, wasn't
There was an entity called the Holy Roman Empire. It was neither holy, Roman, nor an empire. Just to be clear. The Holy Roman Empire was created by Charlemagne, the French king. He was ethnically German. So he was the German king who ruled Gaul because he was the guy in charge of the Franks. And the Franks are the guys who ended up calling Gaul after themselves. And that's why it's called France. France is named after a Germanic tribe. And the original kings of France were Germans. And they conquered what is today Germany. Charlemagne did. He conquered what is today Germany and Austria. And he put it together into France. He owned a piece of northern Italy. And he made this little empire. Well, the Pope had a problem, the Pope in Rome. So there were originally 5 patriarchs. I don't want to get into all of it, but the Pope in Rome was one of the 5 Christian patriarchs. His problem was that the Roman Empire had lost its Western territory, but not all of it. It still had pieces.
There's a lot going on right there.
Now, the Sumerian civilization didn't really particularly have a specific type of a downfall. They had a geological disaster that created a collapse of society. But later on, you discover that they restart the civilization in Kemet, in ancient Kemet, long before it was called Egypt. Now, Kemet already had an advanced civilization there prior to the Great Flood, but it seems as if they moved there and made the new home base the land of Kemet, and everything sprung from Kemet therefore after the Great Flood, post-diluvial. But antediluvial, it seems as if headquarters of advanced knowledge and wisdom, it seems as if it's coming out of this area called Sumeria in Mesopotamia, right? The land between 2 rivers. Although there were civilizations existing around the entire planet, we have records from these people that date back antediluvial, before the flood, pre-flood text. Jesus disappears from the Bible at the age of 12, right? He disappears, and where does he go? There's another text called the Gospel of the Holy 12. And in the Gospel of the Holy 12, which was omitted from the Bible, he goes to Egypt with his mother. Now, I've been there, and when I take people on tour, I take them to the place where he slept. It's still there. It's a crypt now. It's like a place to go there. You know where it's at, right? It's Coptic Cairo. Correct. Right inside that church. They converted it into a church. He went there to study the Egyptian mysteries. He went there also to learn all about the ancient mystery schools. And then he left there and he went to Tibet. He went to go learn spirituality. And then he went down into India, learned about reincarnation and all of that. And then he came back down and he reappears in the biblical text when God says in the Bible, I called my son out of Egypt. Reiki healing in Tibet and, energy healing with his hands. The mystic arts, I have to correct myself, the mystic arts he learned in India. And then coming back down, teaching reincarnation all the way back. The records have been kept. It's complete records. And even the Dalai Lama confirmed that he was in Tibet at one time.
All right, guys, that was another TikTok compilation. Hey, man, taking it way back to, Egypt, ancient Egypt, 30,000 years ago, just thousands of years ago, talking about the civilizations, the technologies, all of the foresight that they had with building these pyramids and stuff that we can't do to this day. Is crazy. It's a lot of unsolved things out there, but if you made it this far, you a real one for real. Make sure you put that in the comments. Also, I got a TikTok playlist. If you into this stuff, I would say proceed with caution. That's what I would say. But till next time, man, self-love and positivity. Fire Squad, I got you and you know it. Woo.